Right now, on one side of the globe, meticulously coached athletes surrounded by team cars and mechanics are fighting for mere fractions of a second on these brutal mountaintops in France.
Oh,
And on
absolutely.
the exact same day, halfway across the planet, solo riders are embarking on a 2,700-mile, entirely self-supported survival test through the American wilderness.
It really is the ultimate split screen, isn't it? You're basically watching the absolute pinnacle of, hyper-controlled, data-driven performance running parallel to just chaotic, complete isolation.
Yeah, exactly. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore how these two extremes are actually colliding. We're looking at a stack of sources today detailing this massive global convergence.
Right, because it's not just about racing anymore.
No, not at all. We've got high-performance athletic evolution, some highly controversial new tech regulations, and massive urban infrastructure shifts happening right in the cities where you live and work.
Well, and when you look closely at these sources, you realize the modern bicycle has essentially become like a smartphone.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
I mean, it's no longer just a mechanical toy. It is a high-tech data hub that's literally reshaping human physiology, local economies, and urban design.
Totally. And whether you're an elite athlete pushing the boundaries of human endurance or just, someone trying to commute to the office without sitting in gridlock, the underlying theme here is that the bicycle is currently this primary focal point for global innovation.
Yeah. So where should we start unpacking this?
Let's start with the physical extremes just to understand the demands driving all this innovation. So over in France, we have the Tour Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes. Stage 7 features the legendary Grand Colombier climb.
Oh man, that climb is just brutal.
It is. For context, this is an 8.4-kilometer climb with an average gradient of 10.2%, and it comes at the end of a 133-kilometer day.
Right.
At a 10.2% grade, gravity is actively trying to drag you backward off the mountain.
Well, the physiological reality of a gradient that steep is that aerodynamics almost completely cease to matter. I mean, your power-to-weight ratio becomes basically the only metric that keeps the bike moving forward. You're just fighting pure physics at that point.
And the human drama here was intense. Paul Sextus, who is this young general classification contender, he suffered a violent bloody crash before the race even officially started.
Right in the neutral zone.
Yeah. He spends the entire day mounting this agonizing chase just to get back to the main group, and somehow he still finishes 7th. Meanwhile, Oscar only literally crashed down into a ravine.
Oh, wow. I mean, the mental toll of that stage is just as heavy as the physical toll,
Really?
When the body is pushed to that absolute red line, cognitive function really starts to slip. Decision-making just deteriorates.
Which perfectly explains Juan Ayuso's massive tactical blunder. He attacks with 7 kilometers still to go on that brutal climb.
Yeah, way too early.
Way too early. He ends up completely blowing up, getting caught, and being passed by Isaac Del Toro, who actually wins the stage.
Right, and then Luke Tuckwell managed to dig deep, finish over 2 minutes back, and still miraculously defend the overall yellow jersey.
Exactly. But the most telling part was when reporters asked Ayuso afterward why he attacked so early. His blunt admission was just, because I'm stupid.
I mean, you have to appreciate the honesty. He burned all his physiological matches in one burst, right? Whereas Del Toro paced his effort perfectly.
Right.
In modern road racing, pacing is usually highly calculated. It's dictated by power meters and data. But Ayuso's move shows that despite all the technology, the mountain eventually forces you to rely on raw instinct, which, can completely fail under extreme exhaustion.
And that raw exhaustion is actually the perfect bridge to the other side of the globe, because the Tour Divide launched on June 12th in Banff, Alberta. Roughly 200 riders are tackling the Great Divide mountain bike route, heading all the way down to Antelope Wells, New Mexico.
Talk about extreme.
Right. We are talking about roughly 2,680 miles and 158,000 feet of climbing. There are no team cars, no entry fee, no prizes. The riders are tracked solely by these little SBOT GPS satellite messengers.
Yeah, and this year, the route had to be adjusted in Silver City, New Mexico, moving riders onto the San Vicente Railroad grade trail. But that slight reroute highlighted an incredible technological bottleneck.
Oh, I loved this detail in the sources.
Right. The official GPS file for this race is so massive that it actually had to be split into 7 distinct segments.
That is just fascinating. The wilderness is so vast that it literally overloads the memory of modern navigation tech.
Exactly. A standard GPS track log drops a digital breadcrumb every few seconds. Over 2,680 miles, the sheer density of those data points just maxes out the RAM and processor of a standard bike computer.
Wow.
Yeah, if you try to load the entire route at once, the device simply crashes.
Okay, let's unpack this because it feels like we're watching two entirely different species of athletes here.
How's that?
Well, the road racers in France are like Formula One cars, right? They're highly tuned, incredibly fast, but completely dependent on a massive pit crew if a tire goes flat. But the Tour Divide riders are like Mars rovers. They are totally isolated, having to fix themselves, and if a component breaks, they either engineer a fix or the mission just ends.
That's a really great analogy. I mean, what's fascinating here is that they are different applications of the human engine, but they both drive an intense arms race in athletic preparation. Surviving either of those extremes requires a biological optimization that honestly borders on science fiction.
Well, let's look at how the top Grand Tour riders are prepping for the Tour de France, because the strategic divergence is pretty wild. You have Jonas Vingegaard, who dominates the Giro d'Italia. His strategy immediately afterward is complete competitive rest at home, followed by an isolated high-altitude training camp in Tignes.
Right, and Visma's coaching staff understands that an altitude camp in Tignes isn't just about riding in the mountains.
Right, it's about the air.
Exactly. At high altitude, the air is thinner, which triggers the body to naturally produce more red blood cells to carry oxygen. They are banking on the idea that the physiological stress of winning the Giro, combined with that passive red blood cell boosting, will build a deep enough base for the Tour.
But then you look at his main rival, Tadej Pogačar. He completely skipped the Giro. Instead, he goes to a Sierra Nevada altitude camp with a totally different goal. He wants to specifically lean out his physique.
Transitioning from short, explosive power to sustained climbing endurance?
Yes, exactly. Maximizing that power-to-weight ratio we talked about earlier. And rather than resting, he sharpens his form by racing the Tour de Suisse, which the organizers compressed into this brutal 5-day gauntlet. Pogačar's dominance is so absolute right now that he was just named the only cyclist on the Time 100 Most Influential People in Sport list.
Well, the science of peak performance has just become so hyper-individualized. There is no single template anymore. It's about optimizing the specific engine of the specific athlete. And we are seeing this exact same professionalization happening off-road, too.
Oh, absolutely. Look at the Unbound gravel race from late May. I mean, a few years ago, gravel racing was a very grassroots, flannel shirt and beer kind of event.
I mean, super casual.
But now,
yeah.
The specialized off-road team exercised absolute taxal dominance. Mads Schmidt won the men's elite in 9 hours and 14 minutes.
Yeah.
Sofia Gomez-Illifane won the women's elite. But the detail in the sources that really caught my eye was the gear.
Oh, the bikes.
Yeah, riders were competing on unreleased, highly customized prototype frames designed specifically for aerodynamic efficiency on gravel.
Which fundamentally changes the nature of the discipline. As gravel speeds have increased, aerodynamic drag has become the single biggest energy drain over a 200-mile race. Drafting dynamics and, wind tunnel-tested carbon fiber are now just as critical on crushed limestone as they are on the paved roads of France.
And the biometric data capturing all this performance is getting incredibly granular. Like, Wahoo just released a new firmware update integrating live biometric sensors, things like H-drop, Core-E, and the TimeWear Vital chest strap. Riders can now look down at their screens and see their exact ventilatory thresholds, VT1 and VT2, happening live.
Right. And to understand why that is a massive leap, you really have to look at how we historically measure exertion.
Yeah, break that down for us.
So VT1 is essentially the exact mathematical moment your body starts working hard enough that you can no longer hold a normal conversation while pedaling. You are switching energy systems.
Okay.
And VT2 is your anaerobic threshold. It is the absolute red line where lactate is flooding into your muscles way faster than your body can clear it out. Historically, to find those numbers, you had to be strapped to a treadmill in a sports science lab with a literal mask over your face analyzing your breath.
And now, a sensor literally reads your respiratory metrics in real time and beams that data right to the screen on your handlebars.
It's incredible.
It is. And the consumer side is seeing this tech integration too. Specialized just released the Turbo Levo EVO-E mountain bike. It has a massive 840 watt-hour battery, but the crazy part is that Apple's Find My tracking is built directly into the digital display.
The bicycle is fully integrating into the Internet of Things.
Yeah, but let me stop you there because I have to push back on this a little bit.
Yeah, what's that?
Are we losing the soul of cycling here? Between secret arrow fairings hidden on gravel bikes and riders staring at their VT2 lactate thresholds on a screen mid-race, It sounds like they are turning human beings into math equations. Is this still a sport, or are we just watching a data processing contest?
That is a completely valid concern, but I'd argue this tension has existed since the invention of the derailleur. The pursuit of peak performance always drives technological leaps.
That's true.
And while reading a biometric dashboard might feel, kind of sterile at the elite level, those innovations inevitably trickle down to everyday use.
Like what?
Well, the integration of advanced biometrics helps amateur riders train safely without causing cardiac events. And that Find My Anti-Theft tech on the specialized e-bike, that solves one of the biggest practical barriers to urban commuting, which is bicycle theft.
Ah, okay. So the elite arms race essentially funds consumer safety and convenience.
Exactly.
But you have a situation where athletes literally require this data to pace themselves safely. Yet, ironically, the sport's governing body is arguing that the delivery mechanism for that data, the screen itself, is a safety hazard.
Right. This is where the controversy really starts. The UCI has announced a new rule, taking effect in January 2028. They are capping the maximum dimensions of cycling computers at 126 by 71 millimeters.
Here's where it gets really interesting. According to the tech analysts in our sources, that is exactly 1 millimeter larger than the current Wahoo ACE, which happens to be the biggest computer on the market right now.
Yeah, that's not a coincidence.
No. And the UCI's stated reasoning is that they want to reduce the cognitive workload of the riders. They are basically arguing that big screens provide too much data, which distracts riders and causes crashes.
But the pushback from tech analysts, particularly Raymaker, is sharp. I mean, the UCI openly admitted in their own press release that they have no actual safety studies proving this theory.
Wait, really?
No data.
None. They instituted the ban without doing the actual research.
Well, critics are arguing this is actually a backdoor way to ban aerodynamic equipment, because manufacturers had started using these large head units to essentially build an aerodynamic shield over the handlebars, right?
Exactly. It deflects the wind around the rider's torso to cut resistance.
But from a purely practical standpoint, making screens smaller might actually be more dangerous. I mean, if a rider needs to check their live ventilatory threshold and you shrink a screen that is displaying 8 different data fields, they have to fixate their vision for 2 or 3 seconds to read the tiny text. Yeah, it dramatically increases the visual cognitive load. At racing speeds, looking down for 3 seconds means you are traveling hundreds of feet completely blind.
It's like the government banning large fonts on a car dashboard to stop distracted driving. Making the text smaller actually forces you to squint and take your eyes off the road for a longer period of time. It feels completely backwards.
It really highlights a classic regulatory pattern, though. Governing bodies like the UCI frequently use the concept of safety as a catch-all tool to control equipment aesthetics and shut down aerodynamic arms races before they spiral out of control. We saw it when they banned certain aerodynamic riding positions a few years ago, and now we are seeing it with digital screen sizes.
So the UCI is policing the digital dashboards of elite athletes. But if we zoom out to the macro level, massive municipal governments are dealing with the physical safety of cyclists on a global scale. And this is fundamentally changing the physical layout and the economics of the cities where you live.
Oh, absolutely.
You look at the data coming out of Paris recently following their municipal elections. The administration, which comes from the Socialist Party, doubled down on the 15-minute city model of the previous term. And regardless of where anyone sits on the political spectrum, the pure traffic and economic data coming out of this initiative is just staggering.
Right. They allocated a €250 million budget to the Plan Vélo 2021-2026. And one of the centerpiece initiatives was the Périphérique Apaisé. They literally took their busiest ring road and lowered the speed limit from 70 down to 50 kilometers per hour.
Which sounds completely counterintuitive. I mean, slower speeds usually mean more traffic, right?
You could think so.
But the result was a 27% drop in total traffic congestion alongside a 3 decibel reduction in nighttime noise pollution. Plus, the 60 kilometers of protected cycle paths built specifically for the Olympics are now being made permanent.
Yeah, the drop in congestion basically comes down to the fluid dynamics of traffic.
How does that work?
Well, when cars travel at 70 kilometers per hour in dense environments, any slight braking creates this accordion effect. One person taps their brakes, the person behind them slams theirs, and suddenly you have a phantom traffic jam.
Oh, right. I've been stuck in those.
We all have. By lowering the speed to 50, you smooth out the flow. the accordion effect disappears and overall throughput actually increases.
That makes total sense.
And London is applying similar logic. Transport for London is injecting £94.8 million into active travel this fiscal year. A major piece of that is Cycleway 4, which is a continuous, fully protected 12.5-kilometer bicycle highway connecting Woolwich directly to Tower Bridge.
It's a complete rewiring of urban flow, and we are seeing how this rewires local economics in the United States, too.
Yeah, the data there is fascinating.
It really is. Our sources cited empirical research from People for Bikes utilizing a metric called the Bicycle Network Analysis Score, or BNA. This index grades how safely and easily a person can reach key destinations by bike. If a city scores over a 50 on this index, their independent bicycle dealer retail sales are 3 times higher than lower-scoring towns.
And the specific data compares Boulder, Colorado, which has a high BNA score of 62, against Ann Arbor, Michigan, which scored a 35. Boulder's retail sales aren't just slightly higher, they are 9 times higher than Ann Arbor's.
9 times?
Yeah, and the mechanism driving this is simple. When you travel through a downtown in a car, you are just passing through. But when you travel by bike in a protected lane, you are moving at a human scale. You are much more likely to stop, buy a coffee, or visit a local shop because parking just isn't a barrier.
And state governments are recognizing this economic bump. Yigan, California is dedicating massive amounts of their active transportation program and SHOPP funding, which is their State Highway Operation and Protection Program, specifically to active transit and secure bike parking at rail stations. They are literally diverting highway funds to bicycle infrastructure.
And we are seeing the labor market shift as a result, too.
Right. The outdoor retail industry is feeling the structural weight of this shift internally. On June 1st, 2026, workers at the REI store in San Diego voted overwhelmingly to unionize under the UFCW Local 135. They are now the largest unionized REI in the U.S., which shows a pretty significant labor shift in the outdoor economy.
It really does.
So what does this all mean for you? Even if you never plan to ride the 2,700-mile Tour Divide, and even if you have no idea what a VT2 threshold is, the fact that protected bike lanes literally triple local retail sales means this movement is fundamentally altering the economy of your local downtown.
Yeah, the bicycle is no longer just a recreational tool. It has become a serious economic and infrastructural engine. The municipal decisions being made right now about bike lane funding and speed limits are actively dictating the financial health of local businesses and the safety of your daily commute.
Let's take a breath and recap the sheer scale of what we've unpacked today. We started in the grueling, muddy gradients of the Grand Colombier, looking at the pure physiological limits of human endurance.
And contrasted that with the 2,680-mile solitary slog of the Tour Divide.
Right, where the wilderness literally breaks modern GPS memory banks. Then we explored the high-tech biometric arms race, where your exact respiratory panic point is turned into real-time data, and e-bikes have anti-theft tracking.
Then there's the UCI attempting to regulate the size of the screens displaying that data,
using safety to mask an aerodynamic crackdown. And finally, we zoomed out to see how fluid dynamics and multi-million-dollar investments in active transit are reshaping the congestion, noise, and retail economies of global cities like Paris, London, and Boulder.
It's just a massive convergence of human effort and technology. But, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you go about your day.
Let's hear it.
As our cities completely redesign themselves around the bicycle to solve 21st century problems like gridlock congestion and climate mandates, and as our bikes become as smart, connected, and data-driven as our smartphones, are we moving toward a future where the simplest mechanical machine ever invented actually becomes the ultimate mandatory technology for human survival?
That is a fascinating question, and exactly why we dig into these sources. Keep learning, stay curious, and the next time you see a protected bike lane or a cyclist fighting their way up a steep hill, remember, you're not just looking at a workout. You are looking at the focal point of a global evolution. Catch you next time.
Spirituals